Let's begin by saying hello. Glad you're here. This is my second installment of Spooky Stories in the Rain. I'm reading from a publication called World's Scariest Places, Haunted, Creepy, Abandoned by Centennial Presents, which is a book that you could purchase from, any place that offers reading material. So, I felt this publication worthy of sharing. It has just little short stories, sometimes one page long. And, everybody has a hectic life these days. So, in order to get in a bit of reading, which is something that I love to do, I find myself having to read publications like this because I don't have much time for anything more than that. So, without further ado, here we go. First story I'm going to be telling you is about a church in the Czech Republic. It's called St. George's Church. The church's caretaker admitted that some visitors were too terrified to enter when they saw the sculptures, ghostly white statues, silently filling the pews of this once cursed place of worship. The tribulations besetting this 14th century church in the Czech Republic would test the faith of any believer. Fires over the centuries would damage St. George's Church in the village of Lukova, and the congregation would have to rebuild. Then after World War II, the Czechs, reeling from Nazi occupation, expelled the ethnic German parishioners, and the church's condition deteriorated. The death knell seemed to come in 1968, when the ceiling collapsed during a funeral. Terrified congregants refused to return, fearing the crumbling church was haunted, and insisted on holding masses outside. As the church decayed, vandals and thieves took off with anything that wasn't nailed down. From paintings to the tower clock, even the church bell was stolen. Then in 2012, an art student at the University of West Bohemia got a burst of inspiration. From his senior thesis, he created eerie plaster casts of his classmates and filled the pews with ghostly sculptures representing the German-speaking people forced from their church and homes. The effect was so scary that some parishioners still refused to enter the church, thinking actual ghosts lurked among the statues. But when a YouTube video of the haunting tableau went viral, visitors from around the world began flocking to this little place, Lukova, 125 miles east of Prague, for a chance to experience for themselves what people began calling the ghost church. Thanks to an influx of tourists snapping selfies, the decrepit old church was reborn, getting a new roof in 2017. It was funded by donations, and the church is once again thriving. I have looked at many pictures of these sculptures that are life-size that have been placed in this church, and I can see why a lot of people flock there. They're very spooky, eerie, creepy, whatever you'd want to call it. But you'd have to drag me there at nighttime. I'm here to tell you. Me, daytime visiting only. You check it out yourself and you let me know what you think down in the comments. Our next story is in Georgia, Bonaventure Cemetery. There is a statue there of Gracie Watson, otherwise known as the Bird Girl. She was commissioned as a sculpture to stand near a family plot, but was moved to the Telfair Museum in Savannah after the cemetery was inundated with visitors eager to see it. It was known as a local legend because they said when you would place a quarter in Gracie's hand and then walk around the statue 3 times, the coin would disappear. You've probably gotten a glimpse of the cemetery without even knowing it. The bronze sculpture of a sad young girl carrying bowls in each hand sat quietly for a half century in this rural bluff-top graveyard, almost completely unknown until a photo of it appeared on the cover of the 1994 book, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Suddenly, everybody knew about Bird Girl, as the statue is called, and about Bonaventure Cemetery, above the Wilmington River east of Savannah, for its featured role in John Brandt's bestseller and the 1997 movie by Clint Eastwood. Originally a 1750s plantation, Bonaventure is the largest public cemetery in Savannah, Georgia, and oozes ghostly atmosphere, with its mausoleums and headstones covered in Spanish moss. Although such notables as lyricists and singer Johnny Mercer and Georgia Gov Edward Telfair are buried here, the real celebrity of the graveyard is the spirit of little Gracie Watson, a sweet girl who once greeted guests to the Pulaski Hotel, which was run by her parents. When Gracie died at age 6 of pneumonia in 1889, her heartbroken father placed a lifelike sculpture of her over her tomb, a statue that is said to wander the cemetery at night. Visitors leave toys for her to play with, and the statue is said to cry tears of blood if they are removed. She's not the only spirit lingering in the shadows. Some claim that they hear a baby crying near an infant's grave, and even a pack of dogs snarling and barking, while other guests say that statues have grimaced or smiled when they stood in front of them. Our next story is the Paris catacombs, which I would absolutely love to visit. One of my favorite movies is a 2014 movie called As Above, So Below. If you've never watched that movie, you definitely need to watch it. So, here we go. If you make a French connection with the dead, just don't try exploring on your own. It can get very dark under the City of Lights. In the catacombs of Paris, the bones of 6 million people fill a maze of tunnels and rooms. The femurs and tibias and skulls piled high into walls and stuffed into every nook and cranny in the limestone. The bones got here starting in the 1700s, when heavy rains unleashed floods that uprooted corpses from the Middle Ages in the city's crowded Holy Innocents Cemetery. Officials packed up the bones and stashed them in a defunct quarry, where the constant 57-degree temperatures would keep them well preserved. The bones kept coming until the last remains were deposited in 1859. A small portion of the 186 miles of tunnels is open to the public to gawk at the bizarre artistic displays of bones, arranged as crosses and other shapes. Urban adventurers called cataphiles go underground for parties, concerts, or simply for peace and solitude among the dead. Some have been known to go beyond the approved locations into secret swimming pools. In 2017, 2 teenagers got lost for 3 days, perhaps lured by what some say are the taunted voices of spirits of the dead, urging the living to go deeper and deeper into the catacombs until they have no idea how to get out. Rescue dogs found the youths who made it back to safety. Others have not been so lucky. In 1793, during the French Revolution, Philbert Asperet, a doorkeeper of the nearby Val de Grace Hospital, ventured into the catacombs via a staircase in the hospital courtyard. His body was never discovered until 11 years later. Well, I hope you enjoyed my second installment of spooky stories in the rain. And I'm hoping to continue to do this. If you enjoy this type of thing, let me know by giving me a thumbs up and leaving me comments. And until next time, guys, good night, sleep tight, don't let the ghosties bite.